Good afternoon, cult members. Welcome to the Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And this is our spoilers filled episode review of Stranger Things Season 2. I'm going to say this again. Spoilers. Okay, you've been told 3 times in 30 seconds. Spoilers. That way you can't come back and complain about it. It's been out for 5 days, and if you haven't been spoiled yet, it's not my fault or her fault. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick, just kind of overview of the entire series, and then we're going to run down the episodes. Not go super in depth with each episode, but maybe some of the highlights of each episode, and then a couple of things that we liked if we didn't already cover them. Maybe a couple of things we didn't like.
Yep.
That's going to be hard to find out. So overall, what did you think of this season?
I thought it was good. I thought it was awesome. Maybe, just a little bit not quite as good as the first season, but again,
we're done.
It's a little bit, just because we've talked about this before. You don't have the fresh new.
We're done.
Okay.
This season is as equal to. Now, I will point out this. We've watched it once. We've watched the first season a bunch.
Yes.
So we're very familiar with the first season.
Yes.
We've only watched it once. I'm trying to figure out when we can start watching it again.
Yes.
With everything else going on. This is on level with the last season.
Okay.
With the exception of, there's one episode that a lot of people really hated this season, and I think they missed it.
We can talk
And
about
we'll
that
get to
when we
that
get
one.
there.
So, but I
There's
think
a couple things that
I
I think could have been better, but
well, that's fair. It's wrong, but it's fair. But so
I'm not wrong. Go listen to the rest of the internet.
I did today, and they're all wrong. So we'll start with episode 1. Episode 1 was called Mad Max. It's essentially the guys are playing video games, and life is a year after.
Almost a year.
Almost a year after.
11 months or something.
Yeah, of the incidences that happened in the first season.
Yep.
In the previous year.
Yep.
The boys are playing video games, and Will's going to see the doctor a bunch, and he's starting to have these episodes where he's fading out into the upside down.
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of get the impression that he's probably been having these episodes because he had one at the very end of the last season. Right. And so, but probably not with the frequency or intensity that starts to happen throughout this season.
Yeah.
But it's more just kind of a, hey, here's what's been going on with Hawkins and the kids.
And everybody. And then Harper gets called in on this really weird rotten pumpkin field.
Yeah.
And the farmer's like, oh, it's that guy over there because I started this and it was his idea. Whatever. And so that kind of gives you the idea, outside of the stuff that's going on with Will, that there's actually more going on in Hawkins than just, average, everyday, status quo, kids being kids, that kind of thing.
Right.
And that episode is a great start off. Now, that is the episode that started with the cold open of the bank robbery.
Right.
And I had to go look to make sure that I actually clicked on the right show on Netflix to start, because it looked nothing like.
Right. You're like, what is going on?
But that becomes important later on. So, But it was kind of an interesting cold open. And there's a character in there who has abilities similar to 11.
Right.
And
her name is 8.
And her name is 8, which we figure out later. And so that was a really good start of the season. Boom, here we go. You're right back into it. You kind of figure out what everybody's been doing, and then...
And you also get introduced to all the new cast members, I believe. I believe that they do Max and her brother
Billy.
and Billy,
and then
Bob and Bob,
and
right? So I believe they're all introduced in the first episode.
Yeah. And I really liked all the new characters, especially Bob. Some of the stuff that I watched today, some people were complaining that in the first couple episodes they didn't like Bob because they thought he was a bad guy.
Right.
Because he was overly...
Yes.
He's overly nice.
Oh, and Paul Reiser...
Paul Reiser, the doctor.
The doctor. Yeah. We get introduced to him, too. And same thing with him. I thought both of them were probably bad guys. I mean, I guess I can talk about it a little bit here, but I wasn't a huge fan of Max and Billy. Definitely Billy. And we talked about it like kind of halfway through. Like you were saying, I really hope that these two pay off like I want them to.
Yeah.
I felt like I don't know what Billy's purpose was at all, other than
the only thing I could think of after kind of watching some stuff today and kind of hearing people talk about it was he was the bully from the previous season.
Yeah.
He was kind of Steve without the redemptive
honestly,
arc.
he wasn't Steve. He was Steve's friends, the girl and the guy.
Yeah.
That just asshole for being asshole sake. You know, I didn't feel any emotional connection to either of them, and I felt like Max was the same way. She was just there, as they say, to move the characters along, or to get them to feel these certain feelings, or but I think it would have been better. I think them and the episode that everybody didn't like would have been better served if they had been strung out more through this season and maybe into the next season.
Right. I think we'll get something with Billy in the next season. Max, it took a couple people on the internet saying it today, and then I realized that they were correct, that Max was the proxy for the audience to be the one that has to have things explained, but still is like, I don't understand, like this isn't real, that kind of thing. And so
I get it. I understand why they were there. I just, I was like, okay.
Yeah, I get it. I just thought it was a really good start. And
you feel so emotionally connected to everybody else in this show, and so they were just like,
right. So chapter 2 was Trick or Treat Freak. The boys get dressed up as the Ghostbusters.
Except no one else dresses up.
Except nobody else dresses up for school, so they're all walking around with their
proton
packs, and Dustin's got the little trap and everything that actually works, which becomes important later. We get the best argument that you will ever have when you have 4 boys, 3 of them are white, 1's black, and they all dress up as the Ghostbusters, and there's 2 Venkmans, and Lucas goes as Venkman because he doesn't want to be the black guy. And
Winston,
right?
Yeah.
So it was so
funny.
Like,
why do I have to be Winston? And Mike's like,
because it's because of black, isn't it? So funny.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
it is. It is.
But... So this episode had them going trick or treating. Mike has a full-on episode, and that's when we really start getting introduced to the shadow creature. They end up calling him for most of it. It kind of chases him down. We get a little bit more of the character development with Bob and what is Winona Ryder's character's name? I have it. Hold on. Joyce. And so we get Joyce. Where is everything going? There we go. So we get Joyce and Bob's you get more into their kind of relationship. You get more comfortable with the boys being back together. 11 still really isn't kind of around a whole lot. Still, she's in it, she's like in it in pieces and parts and stuff.
I think you do know at this point though that Hopper is has sequestered her into
the cabin and stuff. Yeah. This was also a really good episode, but it was more of, a lot of people complain about how slow it was the first 3 or 4 episodes, and if you go back and watch the first season is the first 3 or 4 episodes are pretty slow.
Yeah.
And
you have to build. You have to, even though we've built a world, you've got to go back and it's been a while, so we got to go back and revisit. And where are they now?
Right.
And who are these new people?
Right.
And
and then Nancy and Nancy and Steve go have dinner with Barb's parents, and Barb's parents have hired a private investigator to
look into
Barb's death and all the stuff that
disappearance.
Went on. Well,
they don't know. They don't think she's dead.
Right. And just Nancy dealing with all of that is really kind of hard for her. Is this the one where she gets drunk? Is it this episode where Nancy goes and gets drunk at the party and pretty much tells Steve?
I think it might be the next one.
They're all kind of blended together. But so I think it was and then Mike keeps having these moments in his house where he keeps turning around and looking at the fort that he made for 11.
Yeah.
And keeps, every day he gets on the radio and says, hey, it's day 322.
Yeah.
11, I'm still here. I'm still there for you and stuff. And so it was a character building episode. Not as good as the first one, but it's still a really good episode.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
Yep.
Chapter 3 was called The Pollywog. Pollywog was
it's another name for a tadpole.
Another word, yeah, it's a tadpole. Dustin finds a new pet in the trash can. It's like this big, and it
looks like like a big pollywog.
It does. Like a big.
It's got
fat,
back legs and a tail, and that's it.
Yeah, and he goes and he traps it in the Ghostbuster trap. And takes it into school, and
his conversation with his mom, and he like comes in and he's got it because he finds it in the trash as he's getting ready to walk in the house. So he puts it in the trap, and he walks in the house, and his mom's like talking to him about hi honey or whatever, and she's like, what's that? And he's like, oh, isn't this cool? And it's like he's like, yeah, I put a motor in it so it would make that, and it's in a thing so it makes the sound, and I gotta go. Oh my god, Dustin was awesome. Awesome through this whole thing.
I liked Dustin a lot through this whole I love last year he was kind of the last season he was kind of the voice of reason, and this year he was more of the making poor decisions. But what it really was he is loyal to a fault, and so he, no matter what, wants to do the right thing, what he thinks is the right thing for the group or for his new friend or his pet, whatever. So he'll make decisions based on what he thinks is the best thing, and what ends up being the best thing always isn't the best thing.
Right.
And so that's kind of what ended up with Dustin this year. And so he kept making all these decisions with this fucking pet that kept getting him in trouble. And then the pet ended up being growing front legs, and then it
kept molting
and getting bigger, and he kept feeding it Three Musketeers, and then I'll tell you. So it ends up becoming a Demigorgon dog, and they called them Demidogs.
Demidogs, yeah. Demidogs.
And so it was a Demigorgon's face with the flower face, but like dog.
Yeah, it
has
a tail and 4 legs.
And it kept growing and growing and growing and stuff. And later in one of the episodes, he traps it in the bomb shelter outside, or the tornado shelter, and then it digs its way out, and then so
because he came home from trick or treating, I think, and it wasn't there.
School. I think it was school one day. He came home and it was not there,
and it wasn't there. And then he started to see blood, and it was eating Mew Mew, the cat,
which was glorious. 11's been kind of sequestered in this cabin in the woods with a TV for almost a year, and she's getting antsy to leave.
She's getting a little teenage angsty.
She's getting a little teenage
little sassy.
And she has powers, and Harper is doing his best to be a good parent, but he's trying to, argue with a, 13-year-old with powers.
Yeah.
Telekinetic powers. And it just becomes more and more of that, parent telling him what the child to do, and the child being upset, and it was just a really kind of interesting family dynamic that they were building, and they were eating TV dinners, and they're having, Harper was late one night, and so Eleven ate the Eggo first, and then he yelled at her for eating the Eggo first and not eating dinner the right way, and it was just kind of this cool little setup. And then Bob starts building on your heartstrings, and he sits down with Will. He takes Will to school, and he talks about how when he was a kid, he had monsters that he had nightmares about, and he finally stood up to the monsters and told them to go away. And so Will's gonna, took it to heart, and it
may have not been the best idea.
Yeah, the shadow monster starts chasing Will, and Will finally decides that I'm gonna stand up to this thing, and he turns around and he starts yelling at it to go away, and the shadow monster smokes into Will, and becomes part of Will, and so probably not the best device in the world.
And Bob, who's from Maine, had bad dreams about a clown.
Yeah, nice little homage. There was a couple of good homages. Exorcist earlier, and Aliens kind of feel and stuff. Chapter 4 was Will the Wise. Will starts having more and more of these episodes, and now he's under control of the shadow monster. So Mom takes him to the doctors at the lab, where he goes once a month to talk to the
Paul Reiser's
doctor, and they do all the tests, and they find that the brain activity is expanding rapidly, and things are happening, and the other doctors in the lab want to kind of do like let Will go and die, and Paul Reiser starts to kind of show that he actually cares about Will, and he cares about
he's
what's
not
going
necessarily on their side. He's more on Will's side. And one thing that some folks had talked about that I didn't kind of catch until they brought it up was this episode's called Will the Wise, which is one of Will's characters, and they show the drawing of, it says Will the Wise, and he's a sorcerer or whatever. And then one of the later episodes is called The Spy, which is also something that Mike calls Will when they're talking. I thought it was very interesting that Will is open and telling everybody what's going on. Yeah. Instead of, I kind of wondered if he would just keep it a secret, because that's kind of what seems to happen in the last episode of the last season. But he's telling his mom everything that's happening. He's telling Mike everything that's happening. Yeah. Now, obviously, he's not telling perfect strangers, because they're not going to freaking believe him. But
he was telling Paul Reiser, as the doctor, telling him everything that's going on. But the conversation, I don't know if it was in this episode or not, but the conversation that Will and Mike have, where Will can kind of just talk to Mike as a friend, and instead of because Will's kind of in this strange place where his mom is overprotective, and Jonathan and Will have a conversation too, where Will's like, everybody treats me this way, stop treating me this way.
Everybody treats me like I'm broken, or I'm fragile, or
right.
And
so that was kind of that continuation of Will trying to figure out who he can really talk to about stuff.
Yeah.
Harper keeps going on this journey of trying to find the truth. They find another field that's all the fields, all the pumpkin fields, all the pumpkins have been decayed or infected.
Yeah, they're almost like, because they're just covered in flies. It's not like they were burned. It's like something's in them.
This was the episode 2 where Will finally broke down and said, I keep seeing things. And in his conversation with Joyce and Harper about, I keep seeing things, and Joyce is like, well, can you describe it? And he said, well, I don't know how to describe it. And so she said, can you draw it? And so he started drawing it in crayons, and he would draw like weird lines or whatever and throw it on the piece of paper on the floor, and then draw the next piece, and they come to figure out they were all connected. And so then they started connecting them throughout the house, and it becomes this giant map.
Tunnel system.
Tunnel system map that all goes back to the gate at the laboratory.
Which Bob figures out, because he's like, he comes home and he comes to the house and he's like, what is this? Kind of like the Christmas lights in the last season. Yeah. He walks in, he's like, what the fuck is happening? And then he starts to realize that this is such and such lake, and this is this stream, and so that makes this, and that makes this, and so that he's the one that helps them figure out that it's Hawkins.
That starts the roller coaster. Everything's been a build up to the start of this, and that's kind of the start of, here we go. We're starting to go on the journey. We've done all the character development.
Yeah.
This was also when Eleven got in a lot of trouble with Harper, and so he took the TV away and grounded her and couldn't let her.
Was this the episode she left the first time?
This is not the one. Oh, yes. She left the first time, and then
she got spotted by. She went to see Will, basically, just to
Mike,
just to see him. Like, she didn't let him know she was there, but she went to the school and she saw him. But she got seen by a mother and her daughter.
Yeah.
And so then they called the cops because some strange kid was roaming around the forest.
Right.
And then, so now Hopper knows that she was out, and so he's pissed.
Yeah, so he's upset, and he takes the TV away, actually breaks the power cord, and
she explodes all the windows.
Yeah,
and
it's a pretty awesome.
It's a big fight.
It's a pretty awesome. But in that, he leaves and tells her to clean up, and as she's cleaning up, she mentally just moves one of the chairs and finds a secret door underneath the cabin, opens it up, and it's boxes and boxes of files, and so she pulls one of the boxes out and she starts going through the files, and she finds out that who her mom is.
Right.
And so this is when she starts the process of deciding to leave to go find Mama.
So this is a story arc that never went anywhere, and I'm wondering if they're going to pick it up in the next season. Because this is his grandfather's cabin.
Right. All the boxes.
And there's boxes.
I thought you were talking about the Mama thing.
No.
I talked about that.
And there's boxes and boxes of research on Hawking's laboratory.
Right.
And they never go back to that. So
yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And this is the catalyst to. So we have Will figuring out the tunnels. We have 11 figuring out who Mom is, and now we're off. And so chapter 5 is Dig Dug. Nancy and Jonathan pretty much get themselves caught and taken into the laboratory, and Paul Reiser's the doctor that Paul Reiser plays takes them on a tour and shows them where the gate is and shows them where all the stuff is, and they record it. And so this is the start of them, because they're gonna just blow the whole conspiracy up, because they're not this is now justice for Barb.
This is justice for Barb.
And so it starts with the whole let's go do this, and then they're gonna find somebody to disseminate all the information out. This is also the episode where Bob figures out the tunnel system and everything, and Harper goes to one of the fields, digs in the fields, finds the cave,
one of the tunnels,
digs into it, And then that's the scene from the trailer where you see Harper in this gray lit cave, and then the camera kind of spins, and so now he's in the upside down, and he walks around in there, goes to the central location, which is essentially like a graveyard. It's all bones and stuff like that, and he keeps getting shot with, I don't know what it was. It was some
kind of
mist or something like that or whatever. And he leaves himself a trail, like Hansel and Gretel. With cigarettes and different things. And so he tries to figure out what's going on in this central location. He trips and he falls over, and the vines take over.
Yep.
And in that process, the security and the doctors and stuff from the lab show up and save him. And the way they save him is they start burning the stuff back, and they pull him out and stuff. This was the episode where Will was there to help. Joyce and Jonathan, was it Joyce and Jonathan, went into the cave because they hadn't heard from Harper, and they found him, and they were starting to do all the stuff.
Right.
And then the laboratory people, that's what it is.
They showed up as they were trying to get him out, and then they got him out, and they started burning it all. But while they were burning it, Will was up topside and went into a massive fit.
Yeah. And it was just this crazy, like, super awesome. Now you know that the shadow monster and the demodogs and Will are all directly connected to each other, and one affects the other, and that kind of thing. This was also the episode where 11 meets Mama. She has a conversation with Mama in the black room.
Yeah. And so Mama is the woman from last season that Joyce and Hopper went to see, because they had learned going through newspaper clippings that she had lost a child, and was, conspiracy theorying that she had been taken by Hawkins' lab, and then somehow ended up crazy. We find out how that happened.
Yeah, she went in to try to find 11, and pretty much started shooting up the place.
Yeah.
And
so they
electroshocked her. And so everything she was saying was like rainbow, 3 to the right, 2 to the left, like all the things that she was saying.
Daisy, or sunflower,
something like that. So 11 got to see that and what happened to her, and then Mama kind of explained to 11 that there's others like her, and that's when you find out who 8 is.
Right.
And that now 11 needs to go find 8, and then the Mama's sister was on the phone with somebody. They kind of made it sound like it could have been the lab, but 11 wasn't going to stick around and find out, so she was out.
Right.
So 11 is gone. Will is unconscious. Harper's been taken by everybody. And then we get this chapter 6, which is the spy, which is the one we were talking about earlier. Will is in a straight-out coma. He wakes up. He remembers Joyce. He remembers Jonathan, and nobody else.
Yeah.
So he doesn't remember Harper. He doesn't remember the doctor, anything like that. This was another episode where they took a piece of the vines and burned it and showed how it was affecting Will.
Mm-hmm. And they also had a scan of his brain and were showing that whatever was happening, tumor or whatever was, it had gone from a couple of hot spots to basically taking over his whole brain. So, by the end of the day, he's not going to be him anymore.
Right.
So we just need to go down there and start burning on this thing again.
And so they go to the graveyard central location thing, and they go down there, and while that's all happening, Steve and Dustin become the most unlikely of duo So Dustin is trying to get a hold of everybody. Will's gone, Mike's gone, Lucas is gone because Lucas's sister turned the radio off.
Harper's gone.
Dustin can't get a hold of anybody. So he goes to Mike's house, and Steve shows up to try to win Nancy back with flowers and whatever. And Dustin pretty much says, "Let's go. Do you still have the bat?
You still have that bat? Let's go."
Let's go. And so they work together to go into the storm shelter to get Dark, which is the Demogorgon.
D'Artagnan.
And to get the Demodog. And that's when they find out the Demodog had dug its way out. And so they start working out this plan to attract it to the junkyard that they were at last season. And Lucas finally gets a hold of the radio. And Dustin says, "Where the fuck you been?" And so Lucas decides that they need more help, and that's when he goes and gets Max. We get a lot of the backstory between Max and Bill. Still not really sure what's going on there. The next episode, they kind of explain that it's a circle of
abuse.
Abuse, that's the word.
I think it was this episode.
Was it this episode?
Because the next one is the
episode.
Yeah.
And so they so Max, Lucas join Dustin and Steve to get Dark to pretty much kill him. Is pretty much what they thought.
Yeah.
And they were to set him on fire and everything.
Yeah.
And they build this Mad Max security thing in the bus. And Dart shows up, but he's not alone. And Steve's out there by himself with a bat, and there's like 3 or 4 of them circling him. And Steve starts going off on him with the bat and stuff. Steve's kind of a badass, guys. Imagine that.
Well, he's an athlete.
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
football team.
And he gets back into the bus, and all the Demodogs start just going after
These
the
things
bus.
are powerful too. They're going through metal.
Yeah, yeah. And so you're thinking, oh my God, this is it. This is it for these characters.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they just go.
They
just run away, and they take off, and Dustin and Steve and Max and everybody, they all start following where they were going, and they find out that they go back to the lab.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is the lab people go to the center location with guns and fire, and they're going to set the whole thing on fire and everything, and all the Demodogs show up and eat them.
And there is a lot.
There's a lot.
Not just Dart.
Yeah.
Not just Dart and the, handful that were at the junkyard.
Yeah.
There's 100.
Yeah, and they take out all the security guys, and then they all attack the lab. And that's the end of the episode. And it's Harper at the control room with Paul Reiser and some more of the control room guys looking into the hole, and you see the claws of the Demodogs coming out. It's like, run!
Well, and Mike figures out that it's Will is the reason why.
Will's the reason.
They know he's the spy.
Yeah.
Because, he says, "I'm sorry."
Yeah, it was kind of his idea to put everybody to go after that one.
He's like, I know how to get him, and then he's like,
you
I'm
come to
sorry,
find out it was him controlling Will.
Will, yeah. And
then we get to chapter 7. Now, this is the episode that everybody's going to complain about the most. It's called The Lost Sister, and it's essentially Eleven's journey to Chicago to find 8 and 8's little crew of warriors. They're totally the warriors. Come out and play, yay! They're totally like this gang.
Sure.
And 8 is on this crusade to go after everybody who made 8 and 11 the way they are. By the way, back a couple episodes, we find out that 11's real name is Jane. She will never be Jane. She's L11.
Yeah. And by go after, I mean they're killing them.
Yeah.
They're not, telling them they're bad people or whatever. They're going and they're killing them.
8's power is to go into your mind and make you think that something is there that isn't, or whatever. Projecting kind of thoughts and stuff like that. In this episode, 8 kind of helps 11 become stronger.
Yes.
She moves a whole railroad car by herself and all this other things.
She makes her understand that if she uses her hate for what they did to her and all of that, that it will, help her to be more powerful.
Yeah.
And people, I wasn't a fan of the episode. I understand completely why they did it. It was, to get 8 and 11 together, it was 11's kind of journey, her, becoming more of who she actually is and less of this child that was been sheltered all this time, and to increase her powers. I just think it was poorly executed. I think I would have liked it better if 8 had just been by herself. And going out on this vendetta thing. Her crew made no sense. They were dumb, and it made no sense why they would follow her. Why are you following this girl around, killing people for her?
I get all that.
Everybody was like, I just want to get back to Hawkins, and but if she'd have been on her own, it could have been more of a sister building. We could have spent more time on the two of them, kind of building a relationship, because I do think that will probably be revisited later.
Yeah. Well,
so in the next season.
With 8 now, there's more than one.
Yeah.
There's more than one of them out there with these abilities, and so in the future they're going to have to. I think next season or season 4, because season 4 will be the last one. One of the jokes I heard today was the Avengers style team up to get everybody with powers to go after him. So that would be kind of interesting. This was my least favorite of the episodes, but I didn't like the crew, but I did like them building 11 and expanding the universe outside of Hawkins.
Yeah, I completely, like I said, I understand why they did it. I just am not 100% behind
This was one, and back to 80s references, which I'll talk about at the end. This was Luke going to Yoda to tap into her powers and kind of learning from 8 how to tap into her powers, and then taking those, instead of staying with the people that she should have stayed with, she went back to save her friends. So it was very much Empire Strikes Back kind of Luke going and training and stuff. I'm not as upset as everybody else about this episode, but what everybody has said about why the episode doesn't work, I totally get. It's just a different episode than everything else. This story had to be told, just not this way.
Yep.
So, all right. So last 2 episodes is where we go. 8 is called the Mind Flayer. They pretty much give a name to him. It's this ancient god who doesn't even know.
Well, a name out of D&D.
Out of D&D. Okay, whatever. But so they are in the lab. Harper, Will, Joyce, Mike, Bob, Jonathan are all in the lab with all the Demidogs attacking.
Yep.
Everybody's getting killed. The power goes off. All the doors automatically lock. Then you have Steve, Dustin, Lucas, and Max together, who followed the dogs from there.
From the junkyard.
Then you have, you don't have Jonathan in the lab. You have Jonathan and Nancy, who have been finally hooking up and working with this conspiracy theorist guy to share the information from the tape they made so they can get justice for Barb.
Yeah, to all the news outlets.
To all the news outlets. Now, the story with Nancy and Jonathan, I thought was funny at times because they finally hooked up. They finally got together, who they should be together. And we'll talk about that at the end, too. And I like the conspiracy theorist guy. I love him. But this story was more about fan service for Barb
than
it was really for anything else, I think. But they finally show up.
Well, I mean, they had to wrap it up. They had to.
They did.
You can't just, a teenage girl can't just disappear and nobody says anything.
Right. So they get to the lab at the gate. The foursome who are show up at the gate, and then everybody's inside. Bob decides to go to the basement to turn on the power back on to unlock the gates.
You have to prime the fuses.
Yeah. Do you speak basic? It was just a great like little thing. And so they get the doors unlocked. Bob gets to the basement, safe, turns the power on, and then he unlocks the doors. And then Paul Reiser stays and helps direct Harper and Joyce and Will and Mike to get to the front door, and then starts helping Bob get out. And Bob has to hide and all this stuff. And now you're like really starting to feel for Bob. You know that Bob is actually this really wholesome, is just really a good guy. He isn't a bad guy in disguise or whatever.
Right.
You really realize that he actually cares about Joyce. You actually realize that he is actually just a good guy.
Yeah.
And there's just no other way of saying it. Paul Reiser instructs him how to get out to the door. He gets out the door with one of the demodogs coming behind him. He closes the door behind him. He turns around. Joyce is standing in the lobby. Bob's standing there and starts to celebrate, and then gets tackled by a demodog.
No!
Harper comes in and starts firing at the demodogs. It's having no effect, which is one of my complaints later. He grabs Joyce, and all the demodogs just start going after Bob. So Bob ends up being the sacrificial lamb this season, like Barb was last year. We all should have known when they named Sean Astin Bob that it was good. So who's going to be next year? Bill Bob or whatever. You know, it's the B. So they get everybody out. They all go back to the buyer's home, and they tie Will up in the shed so he doesn't know where he is, to convince him to get him to be Will and not be the monster, is essentially what I saw.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to get through to Will.
And they have Will tied up, and he's tapping on the side of the thing while he's talking. So that talking is the mind flayer, the monster talking. But Will is actually Morse coding.
Right. How to defeat him.
How to defeat him and stuff. And then the phone in the house rings, and Will knows that they're at the house.
Always that damn phone.
It's always that damn phone, which is a great callback to all the phone stuff that happened last year. So Will figures out who they are, and then all the demodogs break out of the lab and start going towards the house.
Right.
And they're all in the house. Harper's with a gun. Nancy's got a gun.
Mike's got, or not Mike.
Lucas has got
the
slingshot. Steve's got the bat, and everybody else is just cowering in corners, and like just all this noise going on around and everything around outside, and all this, you start hearing all this stuff, what's going on, and then one of the demodogs comes flying through the window,
dead,
and it's dead in the corner, and you're like, what the hell is that? And you turn around, and the lock undoes itself, and the door opens, and 11's standing there. Ta-da! And the one of the most emotional part of the whole series to this point was Mike finally gets to see 11. They actually, she is actually alive. Mike wasn't crazy this whole time. Just an awesome episode.
Yeah.
And just everything that happened, it was just the buildup of everything, and the everything that happened in the lab, and we sacrificed one of the company, and it was so cool.
Yep.
Then chapter 9, the gate. So the grand plan is to take 11 and break into the lab and close the gate. Have her close the gate. Worst plan ever conceived by man.
And Nancy, Joyce, and Jonathan are going to take Will to Hopper's cabin because Will's never been there before, so he won't be able to tell him where he's at, and so they take him there, and so that leaves Steve as the babysitter,
right,
for everybody else.
The group that goes to the cabin, the idea is to take Will up there and essentially burn the virus that is the mind flayer out of him, essentially. And so they have all these heaters on them and the fireplace going and pretty much just sweat it out of them.
Right.
And Noah Noah, let me look it up real quick. Noah Shap, right? Shap? Noah Shap, who plays Will Myers, shows exactly how great of an actor he is in this scene.
Yeah.
He did it earlier with the untie me from the wall part, but he does the full Exorcist scene tied to the bed.
Yeah.
As soon as they laid him down the bed and tied him down, I'm like, it's Exorcist.
Yep.
And it just so good, and he breaks free, he starts choking out Joyce, and so while this is all going on, Eleven and Harper break into the lab. They find Paul Reiser in the stairwell, chewed up pretty bad but still alive. He kind of sacrificed himself to help get everybody out of the building and stayed behind, and yet here he is still alive, which was kind of, again, another note to show that he actually is a good guy, not really a bad guy. And then the other party, which was Steve and Dustin and Max and everybody, decide on the second worst idea ever conceived by man, to break in to the hole where Harper had dug out, to go to the graveyard and set the graveyard on fire to call the demi-dogs away from the lab, so 11 could close the gate. So they break in, set everything on fire. 11 starts going after the gate. And
Will is being
exercised all at the same time. One of my complaints was, now the gun has effects on the demi-dogs in the hole.
Yeah, I thought that they specifically said earlier at a couple episodes previous that bullets didn't work on them, and then
it was like a bigger gun, but still,
I don't. Yeah, maybe that was it. I don't know. But they were working now.
Yeah, but 11, full goth 11, going after the mind flayer, closing the gate, pretty much, draining herself, just going after it, and then everybody gets out of the hole. Will gets exercised. Yay! We won. And as a victory, they go to the snowball.
The snowball, yeah.
With just the Christmas formal at the middle school. And everybody gets dressed up and goes. Harper and Paul Reiser get together, and he gets his birth certificate that says Jane Harper on it. So 11 is officially now Jane Hopper. And he's officially the dad.
Yeah.
And he kind of tells Hopper that you need to keep her out of sight for a little bit longer. Yep. And he says, how about one thing? So they all show up at the dance. Nancy's there as a chaperone.
Yeah.
Jonathan's there.
Taking
pictures. The four boys are there. Dustin shows up, getting a ride from Steve, and his hair is all done up like Steve's, which is just
pretty
awesome.
Funny.
Max shows up, and Max and Lucas go dance, and then
11 and Mike go dance.
11 shows up, and they go dance, and then they kiss, Yay, finally. And Will and some girl comes over and, hey, zombie boy, you want to dance?
Yeah.
And so Will and her go off and dance.
And Dustin and
Dustin asks a bunch of girls and everybody says no, and so Nancy comes over and grabs
so they're all dancing. Yay,
they're
happy
all dancing
ever
and,
after.
Yay, we've won and everything like that. And they start and Every Breath You Take from the Police is playing.
The stalker song.
And so they pan out of the gymnasium, and as they pan back like this, the camera starts and it goes upside down, and now it's in the upside down, and red lightning flashes in the background, and it's him overlooking the gymnasium watching him. Roll credits.
Yep.
Great ending. You get what you want. You lose one in the party, but you get what you want. You get a victory, but there's this giant cliffhanger of they didn't kill the freaking mine.
Right, they just closed
just closed the gate.
The gate, yeah.
And
it's
so
still there.
It just so good. So good. Oh, it was so good. Overall, the season was, like I said earlier, I thought it was on par with everything else.
I think that episode 7 is probably what the one, because there are no episodes in the first season that I thought missed as bad as.
But we get an extra one this season.
Okay. Thanks. So by the numbers, the percentage, it all evens out. I think that's probably what is making me feel like that this season is just not quite there.
I also like to get some resolutions with Bill and Max. I liked Max as the conduit for the fans, as a what's going on, but I still don't know what's going on with Bill. I still think he's going to be more of a big bad in the next season.
Yeah.
And then, now that Will is exercised, what's going to be the catalyst for the next season?
Right.
And, 11, it's going to be probably another year in the future. So 11's going to be another year stronger. Are we going to get more of 8? Are we going to get more of 9, 10, 12 kind of thing?
Yeah.
You still have this overhanging of Papa, which was Matthew Bodine's character.
Right.
Keeps showing up in
well,
different
he's
ways.
Apparently still alive, because one of the guys that 8 went after when 11 joined their group said, I know where he is. I can tell you where he is.
Yeah.
So
you got that hanging over everything. There was a couple things that I talked about in our non-spoiler review during our regular episode. Was I loved that this expanded the universe of Hawkins and Stranger Things without going super big.
Yeah.
They didn't go super big. They didn't have 50 Demogorgons. They had Demodogs.
Yeah.
And they expanded each of the characters, but they didn't expand them so far that the next season it's kind of like they have to pull back a little bit. Like it made sense their advancement of their storylines and everything.
Right. Yep.
And then the other thing I liked, it was all the different pairings that they did. They paired everybody off with somebody else and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Overall, I really love this season. I would give it like a 9. If we're gonna score it.
Yeah. I mean, it's up there. I might give it an 8.75 just because of episode 7.
You need to get over that shit.
And Max and Bill.
Yeah, but we have no timetable for what the next season is going to be. But I'm ready for some more.
Yeah, and I mean, it's probably going to be at least another year and change between this one and the last one.
Yeah.
They need time to write, and but they don't want to wait too long because we're dealing with kids, and they start to show their age quickly in this time.
I am so happy how good everyone was this season.
Yeah.
Everybody was so
awesome.
well done. Everybody on this show, from David Harbour and Winona Ryder, all the way down to all the kids, even Sean Astin. Everybody just brought it. Everybody cared about it, and they wanted to do it right. So that's what we thought. That was our rundown, reaction, review of the whole season of Stranger Things. It's almost an hour long. I'm not sorry. There's just no way of doing this unless we want to do a 15-minute, not talk about spoilers and stuff.
Yeah.
Which would have been 15 minutes of us going, it was cool.
We already did that. We already did that last night.
So what did you guys think of this season of Stranger Things? Are you ready for a new season? Are you watching the after show stuff that they put on Netflix? We're probably going to go watch that next. Let us know. Like this video. Please leave us a comment. Up in the corner, there's a little subscribe button. It's red. Make it gray. Just like the upside down. You can also get a hold of us on Facebook at the Pop Culture Cult or PopCultureCult1 on Instagram. And we're at Pop_Cult1 on Twitter. We're also in the Stardust app at the Pop Culture Cult. Follow us first, and then like everybody else, I need some food.
Yes.
We're going to have dinner now. Good night now.